Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome. We are talking about the paperwork review challenge and all of the steps within that, all the things that are involved. I'm going to go through some tips for completing that challenge as well as common mistakes people make. And we'll have some time for Q&A. So happy to see everybody who's here. If you can confirm in the chat that you can hear me okay. This is my first YouTube live on a new computer, new setup. Still changing some things up, but I just want to make sure that that's all good. So if you are watching, thank you, Joellen, so much. If you are watching, you can feel free to put any questions, comments in the chat. And if you're watching the recording, then go ahead and put those in the comments below. So in case you don't know who I am, I'm Dr. Maelisa McCaffrey, the author of Stress-Free Documentation, which is, where is it? It's behind me here. And founder of QA Prep and creator of this wonderful paperwork review challenge that has been going on, I think, since 2018. So for a while now, we do it pretty much every January. And sneak peek, I think we'll probably do it over the summer too, because why wait an entire year to do the challenge, right? Because you can never do all the things in the amount of time that you probably have in your schedule. So, okay, let's review the 5 challenge tasks, and then I'm going to go through the common mistakes that I see just for people in general when they take on the task of reviewing their paperwork. All right, so number 1 was actually to review your feelings about documentation. This is something that a lot of people, I think, it's just kind of normal. Like, we have normalized talking about how much we hate doing notes and how much we hate paperwork and completing paperwork and how annoying the whole process is. Not even just in our field, but in general, right? Like, if you say that to anybody about going to a doctor's office and having to complete paperwork, they'll understand that and probably agree with you. So it's important for us to notice those things and acknowledge them, and maybe release some of those if we can. But what I encourage people to do in that first challenge task is look at what are those feelings, because sometimes they're annoyance. Sometimes it's mild annoyance, sometimes it's significant anxiety and avoidance, sometimes it's fear, sometimes it's anger at previous placements, supervisors, insurance companies, etc. So looking at that is really important, because those feelings will influence not only your day-to-day practices with documentation, they will influence anyone who you ever supervise. You will then kind of, project that and often pass that down to those people as well. And they can influence your clients and how they view things as well. So we don't want to do that. Paperwork is kind of like money in that it really is neither good nor bad. It just is. And we can make it good or bad, and we can attribute lots of different things to it, right? So I'm not saying that it's not a lot or that it can't be stressful. That is very real. But people's individual feelings, your individual feelings, will have a big impact there. And it's important to acknowledge them and where they may have come from. Because my experience in working with therapists is that for many people, those feelings come from early supervision experiences or early placement experiences. So having a supervisor who refused to help you or who degraded you in some way because you didn't know how to document, because hello, you're new. And like, that's part of it, you're learning. But sometimes supervisors, and thankfully not all supervisors, but a lot of people tell me they've had this experience with supervisors, literally telling them, it's not my job to teach you this, or you should know this already. And that's absurd, right? So there's that. There's also just maybe you were good. Like, I had this experience. I was pretty good at documentation. It wasn't that the documentation itself was a struggle for me, but I was required to see all these clients, and all of these clients who required all kinds of other, tasks and time outside of sessions that were billable. And literally in a lot of agency work, when we work with nonprofits, the work cannot be completed in the amount of time you are paid to do it. And so that can create a lot of resentment. And so, it's just important to acknowledge those things. You don't have to solve that problem right now, but it is important to know that going in. And it encourages us, I think, to kind of pause and like take a breath. Okay, let me try and, calm myself, regulate my own system a little bit as I go through these tasks. So that's something to remember, because even when you're good at doing that and recognizing that, these can still be stressful things. So then the next task, number 2 in the challenge, was to go through an intake checklist. So there should be a link in the description here for the paperwork review challenge. You can go ahead and sign up for that if you are not signed up, and you'll get all of these emails. We link to all of the previous challenges every day. So in the email tomorrow, you'll get a link to all of the challenges. So even if you sign up late, you can still access all of them. All right, so number 2 is to check your intake forms. So I had a checklist of all of the topics and things that you want to have in your intake paperwork. And it was your only task that day was to, have your intake paperwork, have that checklist, and then check off everything that you have. And then anything that you don't have, okay, we're acknowledging that we need to add that. So that is something to focus on. Of course, you could potentially update things. That's something to consider as well, like if your cancellation policy has changed. But I would first focus on, do I have all of the things in my intake packet that needs to be there? So do that first. And then if you have checked off all the things, then maybe you could look at, okay, are there 1 or 2 policies that I might need to update, or things that I want to explain a little bit more, because clients often seem confused about those things. Those are kind of the 2 questions I would guide you if you already have all of those things checked off. So number 3 was fix 1 or 2 of those items. So maybe you went through that checklist and you have 8 things that are missing, and you're like, this is going to be a lot of work. So this is where I would encourage you to, again, pause, take a breath, stop, and just do 1. Do 1 rather than do nothing. And doing 1 is better than, trying to do all 8 and not getting any of them done. So just take it 1 at a time. And if you can do 1 of those things in 15 minutes, awesome. If you can do 2 of those things in 15 minutes, even better. And then cut yourself some slack and be done with it. And if you feel like, okay, now that I know this information is missing and Melissa's recommending it, and I am highly anxious that I don't have these other 8 things on the list, schedule time in your calendar to do it later. So we're going to get back to some strategies like that. But that was task number 3. So today is day 4, which was challenge number 4. And that was looking at your treatment plans. So that's another thing to do, is not even necessarily looking at the treatment plans themselves, but just pull up all of your clients, look at the list of clients, and do they all have a current treatment plan? That's all you need to do for today. These are all tasks that are meant to be completed within 15 minutes. This is not like, we're doing hours of work this week, okay? So in 15 minutes, you should be able to literally just pull up your clients. Boom. Do they have a current treatment plan? Yes or no. That's all you're answering. That's all you're doing. If you do that and all of your clients have a current treatment plan, yay, you get a gold star, which essentially just means you don't have to go back and fix anything right now. If you want a bonus task, then you could put out the dates that those treatment plans will need to be updated. Make sure you have those scheduled in your calendar or have a reminder in your EHR, however you do that. But if you don't, or if you find, okay, like 5 of my clients do have treatment plans, but they're 2 years old and I need to update those, then schedule time in your calendar to update those treatment plans. And the nice thing about this one is ideally you're not really adding any extra admin time to your schedule, because treatment plans should be updated with clients, because it's about what you and the client are agreeing is the focus of their treatment. So there is no reason to do a task like that outside of without involving the client, right? So this task, ideally, you might clean up, yes, especially if you have kind of for insurance, a more detailed treatment plan, you might do a few things after the session or even before the session to prep, but most of that treatment plan time should be in session with your clients. and focused on their literal goals for treatment. And whether or not you're following like how to, writing it in a SMART goal format because you need that for insurance or whatever, that's not the point of this discussion with clients. The point of it is, are we on track? Where do you feel like this is going? What do you need more of from me? Or what could we do less of together, to use some of those questions from Dr. Daryl Chow in his book, The First Kiss. Those are awesome questions to ask clients throughout your work together, and the answers they'll give you might change throughout your work, right? As your relationship changes, as their situations change. So it's always a helpful and useful thing to talk with clients about how therapy is going. So essentially, you're just kind of putting reminders in your schedule to do that with people. So I'll give you a spoiler alert for number 5, the challenge that we have tomorrow. And that is going to be identify one tool that will make documentation easier for you. And so in your challenge email that you'll get tomorrow, if you're signed up for the challenge, that will have a whole list of ideas and some resources that I recommend. But some things there could be using AI for progress notes. It could be creating email templates so that when you have new clients or when you need to follow up with clients, you already have those emails ready to go and you just copy paste. What are some other things on there? It could be creating an intake structure. Maybe you haven't done that yet. It could be maybe you absolutely hate your EHR and it's researching a new EHR that you can use. It's a whole variety of things. Maybe it's syncing your calendar because you just have never synced your calendar and you spend a lot of admin time doing that type of stuff. I give you quite a few ideas there. And if you have your kind of tech tool or tool to help with documentation that you have wanted to research or wanted to start using, go ahead and put that in the chat or in the comments below and share, because people love getting those tips. And I know lots of them, but I don't know all of them. But that will be challenge number 5 tomorrow. And I have a lot of resources related to all of those things and other videos talking about pretty much all of those things too. So you can check those out. All right, so do ask questions if you have any questions here. I don't see any yet in the chat, but thank you all for your nice comments. So let's talk about the two, I have 2 big mistakes that people make with this challenge, or really with any intention to like fix or make documentation better. And number 1 is that people will often do nothing instead of doing just a little bit. And I think this is because as therapists, you have at least a master's degree, you've been in grad school, you are a high achiever, you have done well. Maybe you're a perfectionist, maybe you're not, but you are used to having high expectations for yourself. You have the type of profession that requires you to get a license, and you have a board regulating you. So there are all these things that tell me a little bit about you as a person, because that is inherent in that job, right? There are lots of other people who also have those same qualities, but everyone in this profession has to have a lot of those qualities in order to get here. So within that are some challenges, right? And one of those is often wanting to do too much, having too high expectations of yourself. And so people will often start something like this and then, go through that checklist, that intake checklist, and think, oh my gosh, there are 10 things in here that I have to fix. And you then become overwhelmed and then not complete the task at all. Or look at, okay, there are 5 things. Okay, I can do 5 things. She said only do 15 minutes. She said only do 1 or 2, but I'm going to do all 5 because now it's going to keep me up at night. So then schedule an hour the next day instead of 15 minutes, try to do all 5, but then something comes up and then just never get back to the task, right? Some of us also have ADHD, and that can be another thing that gets in the way there with starting something and then never completing it. So that's why I really encourage you, just do 1. 15 minutes. And even if it's not complete, put a period at the end of that sentence in your paperwork, but call it, just be done. You can improve it later And it's better to have one thing added or complete or adjusted than to do nothing. And so this is a rule that I have in the catch-up groups that I run, which is, any note is better than no note. And in that way, with a lot of these documentation tasks, it's so overwhelming or stressful or scary or just time consuming that we want to avoid it. And if we can't do it perfectly, we won't do it. So here is your permission to do it imperfectly. And in fact, I'm encouraging you to do it imperfectly because it's better to have it in there and then fix it later than to not have it there at all. So that's the first mistake. The other mistake is not scheduling things. So not planning for time to do these tasks. And so that's why I try to make this a really accessible challenge, which is, even if you didn't hear about this until right now and somehow you're randomly watching this video, you can probably schedule 15 minutes tomorrow to do like the first part of the challenge or one of the challenge tasks. Or you can schedule 15 minutes next week to do it, right? Maybe this becomes a 5-week challenge for you and it's literally 15 minutes every Monday or every Friday or whatever. That's fine. And again, that's better than nothing. But it won't happen if you don't schedule it. If you're just like, this is a great idea, this sounds awesome, but don't take that action. So if there's anything, you are watching this right now, you likely have access to your calendar. So schedule 15 minutes right now. If you're watching the recording, pause it and do this. 15 minutes to act on one of these tasks. Whether it's something you wanted to follow up on or you just haven't even started the challenge yet and want to do one of them. But schedule that time in your calendar and just think, if you scheduled 15 minutes a month to review your paperwork, to work on one task like this for your intake paperwork, 15 minutes a month sounds very reasonable and is not a huge time commitment. And yet that's 15 times 12. That's 12 major tasks you could get done. So obviously you can adjust to this based on your own schedule and all of that. And I know for some people, kind of like binge doing all of the things all at once works better, but still, if that is you, own it and plan the time, right? Plan a whole hour, plan a whole 90 minutes to get those things done, and maybe do it once a month rather than expecting yourself to do these things weekly in short bursts. So do what works for you, but you do have to plan it. You have to plan it ahead, and it is better to do one or half of one than nothing. I promise you. Okay, so let's look at questions. We have a couple that came in. So Alana said, I want to put in admin time in my calendar so it's scheduled. How much do you recommend adding per week? So that'll really depend on, for admin time, I encourage you to have admin time and then notes time, because those are two separate things. Admin time is usually like emails, following up with clients, maybe doing like marketing things, maybe checking up on your Psychology Today, maybe answering voicemails for others, maybe researching something for a client. So identify what you mean by admin time for yourself, because that will be a little bit different for each person. But what are you planning to do in that admin time? And don't put notes in there because of all those things. I see this all the time. If you plan admin time and then expect notes to get done in that time, you will do all the other things first. And then the notes will never get done and it will be the end of your admin time. And the thing is with admin time, with tasks, if you have a private practice, those are infinite. So you could fill infinite amount of time and never get the notes done, right? So you have to kind of separate them out. And so for identifying how much time for progress notes, it's really a matter of just knowing how long does it take you to write a note and how many notes do you need to do every week, and kind of averaging that out. So I encourage people to actually time yourself doing notes and average it out. Time yourself doing current notes rather than like older notes, because those take a little bit longer. But figure that out for yourself. So for some people, they find it really only takes them 5 minutes to do a note. And finding that out in itself is often like the intervention and helps with getting notes done, because it feels more motivating. But maybe you also find out it takes you 15 or 20 minutes to do a note. And so that's going to be a significant amount of time if you see 20 clients a week, right? So you have to know that for yourself. and plan for that time and plan for it to be on top of other admin time. Let's see, Joellen said that resonated. I think that was, I'm not sure at what point that was, but I'm glad. Trying to take on too much and having too high expectations. Yes. Do a little bit rather than nothing is great permission. Yes, that is a huge thing. And that's I get stuck in that as well. It's just a really common issue. Okay, Vanessa said, can treatment plans for non-insurance clients be a part of the progress notes? So they're right in front of me each session and can be updated during the session. I like just using clients' words. Absolutely. Yeah, there are no rules with treatment plans, thankfully, unless you work with insurance. So if you don't work with insurance, all bets are off. A lot of, not all, but some ethical standards, meaning like our professional associations, say that you have to have treatment plans. Not all of them do. Some states say that you have to have treatment plans. Not all of them do. So it's not even necessarily a requirement. I do recommend it, but yeah, I think if you're not dealing with insurance, make it as easy for yourself as possible. And having it there in the note, often if you use any electronic health record, they have a feature where you can just like copy from the previous note and it will all be input, and then you just pull that treatment plan over. It makes it a lot more dynamic and it makes it easier to remember. I know, well, I don't think you need to have the treatment plan in every note, and it can make the note a little bit longer. I couldn't remember all the treatment plans and especially all the individual goals I had for people. Like I knew what I was working on with people, but I didn't know what the like set treatment plan was for everyone when I was seeing 25 clients in a week. It was just too impossible for me to remember all of that. So having it literally there on the screen is really, really helpful. Okay, let's see. And then Vanessa said, I'd like it to be a separate section within the progress note. Yeah, I think that's great. And some EHRs even have that where they do just automatically include it. So it's, if you have flexibility in your EHR to call it like treatment plan, and you can call it, dynamic treatment plan, ongoing treatment plan, you could just have the goals there and just say like treatment goals, whatever you want to call it, have it there. I think that's great. Let's see. And Alana was agreeing it's helpful to separate out admin time and notes. Yeah, the notes will just never get done. All right, so I don't see any other questions. If you do, go ahead and put it in really quickly here. I did want to announce, not tomorrow, Saturday, we are doing a special YouTube Live where I'm going to go through a bonus challenge. That is something, the paperwork review challenge used to be 10 days, 10 tasks, and that was too long. We shortened it to 5. But one of the tasks that was in there I really like, and that is doing a culture review of your paperwork. So on Saturday morning, this Saturday, January 25th, at 9 a.m. Pacific, so noon for you East Coasters, we are going to be reviewing what that is. So I'll explain what does that mean to do a culture review of your paperwork. And really it's about making sure that your paperwork is inclusive and that that inclusivity relates specifically to the types of clients you see and how you work. So we will go through that as a bonus challenge task. All right. Yeah, my state does require treatment plans, but I'm stick with this in the note. Yeah, and often with requirements like that, they don't say where they have to be. Like I've never seen a state that would be so specific as to say it needs to be a separate treatment plan, separate from the progress note, right? It's usually just that you need to have a treatment plan. And so if it's easier for you to keep that in the note, do it. Some people that feels too clunky and some people like to have less information in the note because it gets distracting. So it's really a personal preference thing. Yeah. Awesome. All right, everyone. Hopefully we will see you on Saturday for the next YouTube Live where we'll talk about doing a culture review of your progress notes. If you haven't, or of your paperwork, if you haven't checked out or signed up for the paperwork review challenge, do that. It'll be linked below. And yeah, if you're watching this later, you can still sign up. We will have it offered as a DIY thing throughout the year. All right. Thanks for being here, everyone. Hope you all have a great day. Bye.